Coordinated crime network is stealing, editing, and depositing mailed checks every single day. It's a problem here and across the country. In fact, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office went so far as to ask residents not to use the blue drop boxes.
David Jones digs into the expanding industry behind check fraud and the victims who are left to deal with the consequences.
It's a weight of every day that doesn't go away.
Keith Williams, a small business owner,
I was in a world of hurt.
almost lost his business to a crime that's skyrocketing, both in the New Orleans metro and across the country.
The thing just keeps rolling. It just keeps rolling. As each person gets affected by it, it affects other people.
Back in 2020, Williams mailed more than 20 checks from inside the main post office in Metairie, settling debts to vendors, employees, something he's done for years. Even though they were dropped inside, those checks still weren't safe. When Williams went to his bank, they brought up overdraft fees.
How much were you out?
A little under $50,000.
$50,000. The criminals stole his checks, edited, and deposited them.
How'd you like to be waiting for somebody to pay you some money, and you call them and ask, where's my money? And you say, check's in the mail. We've all heard that lie.
The theft sent Williams into a financial spiral. He had to borrow money from friends and even sell off a warehouse just to make it by.
Now, if you're a small businessman like I am, and I refuse to take any of that government money, I was in a world of hurt.
We started seeing this in 2020, and it only grew from there.
David Maimon leads the evidence-based cybersecurity group from Georgia State University. The group is monitoring different encrypted platforms, kind of like underground markets. When checks are stolen, criminals will sometimes go to the markets to sell them to the highest bidder.
The criminals are using nail polish removers, to erase the content from the check. Very simple. They leave the check to dry and then offer it for sale. The checks go for different prices. It depends on the type of checks, if it's an individual versus a business check.
On the underground market, Maimon says individual checks sell for $120 to $175 each. Business checks go for up to $250. And he says there's no limit to how many someone can purchase.
Even if you have in mind to purchase 100 checks at the same time, there's no issue with delivering this commodity for you.
Maimon's group estimates the value of the stolen checks sold on the platforms ranges from around $10 million a month to around $33 million last month, and that's a conservative estimate. Because it's tax season, he says they're seeing more checks and for higher amounts. In
early 2020, the average weekly number of stolen checks our group observed was around 114 checks a week. Now we're talking about 1,300 checks a week on average.
When mail is stolen, the post office isn't the victim. It's the customer that's the victim.
Frank Albergo is president of the Postal Police Officers Union.
It's an easy crime. It used to be that criminals would rob a bank. Now you don't need to do that anymore. All you need to do is steal mail, wash a check, and boom, you have a few $1,000s.
You can think of postal police officers as your patrolmen, a uniformed presence at post offices. On top of that, they would accompany letter carriers, patrol zip codes, monitor blue boxes.
We would make sure mail theft wasn't happening, and we would arrest anyone who would steal the mail.
Or at least they used to. In August of 2020, Albergo says the post office stripped postal police officers of their jurisdictional authority, confining them to post office property. Just before the order from the post office, Albergo says postal police even received crime mapping technology.
Some incredible reason, the Postal Service decided, we don't want postal police officers doing that anymore. Apparently, they'd rather investigate mail theft rather than actually prevent it from happening.
Where once officers numbered in the thousands, Albergo says the size of the force he represents now is around 400. He says that's not enough bodies to even show that presence at post offices.
21st century policing requires prevention, not investigating. So they're not preventing and they're not investigating. So of course mail theft is out of control.
From March 2020 through February 2021, the Postal Inspection Service received a total of 299,000 complaints of mail theft. During that same period, they opened just over 1,000 cases. That's around 0.4%. And according to data from Syracuse University, that number has been on the decline for years.
It's a tough life. And when you get beat down by the system, you know, it's hard enough to survive without the system not working for you.
Without patrols and with prosecutions at a low, Maimon says the thieves are emboldened.
They feel confident, right, that they will not be captured, that they will not get arrested and pay the price, right, for stealing all this mail.
But how are criminals getting the checks? For those people putting their checks into the blue boxes, well, we know.
We started observing people selling the USPS keys, the universal keys.
Maimon says thieves sell the keys on the black market for a decent price.
The keys can go for starting $1,000, we've seen in Miami, to $7,000 in other locations across the country.
And once you have a key, Maimon says you have access to a number of different boxes.
They're selling the keys along with specific instructions with respect to where the mailboxes are, including specific zip codes you can hit with those specific keys. It is mind-boggling, right? But to me, it speaks volumes to the fact that these guys are not terrified, right? They're not deterred by law enforcement.
But what about dropping your mail inside the post office or leaving it with the mailman?
This is literally a criminal conspiracy with multiple layers and without a real way to roll up and find out who's really behind it.
Guy Williams, president of Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, says both are risky.
Some postal workers have been bribed to literally steal checks from the mail. Some mailmen have been bribed to leave trucks unlocked and then later on report the bag stolen.
He says there's a complex network of criminals behind check fraud.
And what's happening is you have some criminals running the ring. They recruit local people, you know, similar to drug mules, that allow their accounts to be used for a 10% surcharge.
And if they're caught, they don't even know who they're transferring the money to.
This is a relatively new crime, but it is expanding in volume because from the criminal standpoint, it's relatively risk-free.
Williams says he encourages customers to consider online banking, something Keith Williams says he's hesitant about.
I'm old. I don't do the internet. What if I don't have internet? How am I supposed to survive? What is happening to the world?
Has this rattled your confidence in the system and in the post office?
It absolutely has. More so that going forward, it's just the simplest things. This isn't something that should be a problem.
We reached out to both the Postal Inspection Service and the Office of the Inspector General, or OIG. The Postal Inspection Service told me that as far as PPOs are concerned, the jurisdiction of PPOs is limited to Postal Service real property. They didn't answer questions about why PPOs were pulled back in the first place. And the OIG, when I asked whether any local employees are under investigation, said they, quote, don't have any specific information at this moment.